Mr. Lou, how are you?
I am doing great. Great to be here with you again, Peter.
Man, always a pleasure. I think I'm pretty excited today. Do you know why I'm excited?
Do tell. I do have a guess as to what it is, but do tell.
I hear that you guys have rolled out your magnificent data platform for the Business Central.
Absolutely. It's coming in and coming strong. So excited to be able to bring that to Business Central and continue our history there in dealing with data across the different platforms.
Yeah. So maybe a little bit of history for folks that aren't familiar.
Sure. We've been doing this, Peter, for 20
Yeah.
years now. We started in the Navision days and then Exact, and we built a data platform for actually both solutions and have had that for 20 years. Now we're rolling out some of the great functionality that we have and have had in the past in Navision, now bringing it over to Business Central as well. So this is not something we just started today. It's not something that just rolled out of the oven in its first time use. No, it's a solution that's have been out there, proven in hundreds of customers, and now available in Business Central.
Yeah. And if you could expand a little bit on some of the reasons why I love the platform in the AX to FSCM world.
Yeah.
One of the things is that a lot of the data migration stuff that happens via templates. And one of my favorite new techniques is people say that they have connectors and APIs. And then the latest trend that I saw, and which amuses me to no end, is consultants that offer to write custom biz applications to migrate your data. And all of those, while all of those will do something, including the tried and true, having the interns manually fix stuff behind the scenes, there's just this complete disconnect between what it is that you guys do from a data migration, data cleaning standpoint, data governance, than some of these other solutions. If you could just highlight some of those differences, and then I'll jump back into a couple of my favorites.
Yeah, absolutely. And it starts out with, we do that, we take care of that, but we do it without having to do code, without having to actually get deep into the technology. We have configuration of those mappings and transformations in the application without having to have a developer go hack in a biz app solution or an API call or whatever it may be. We have it all out of the box, built in natively to that platform. And we talked a little bit about the FNSCM because we have a solution there too, but it's a wholly separate solution because the value of what we bring in natively into Business Central is that the solution truly understands the business logic and everything within Business Central, so that when you are bringing data in, you're not just doing a dirty shove. I'm not sure if that's a coined term out there, the dirty shoves, but we have control over how the data is coming in, the tests around that data, and whether it is a good quality before it goes into the application. And when it goes into the application, it's not just going into the database, it's really leveraging the business logic throughout Business Central. So again, all of that done without having to use a developer, without writing an application, in a very repeatable way through configuration that you can actually leverage that over time. Because we know when you're migrating data into a system, you don't just do it once and forget it. You're actually going through the implementation, you do it multiple times. You bring in data, you change the system, you bring data again, and then you go live, and then you move into the integrations, right? Which is the next phase of that. But certainly I think we have capabilities there that really simplifies the life of our customers worldwide.
Yeah. I think that people don't understand the importance of that, is that most sophisticated data migration projects, it's too much for one person with their spreadsheet. Or if you're doing something that's customized, it's usually a team of developers. And now one of the things that happens is, how do you keep all of those people synchronized? And how are they all using the same kind of rules? Are they all using the same tools? And it becomes really complex.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you said there that kind of jumps over folks, is because they're not into the weeds of this all the time, is that multiple times of having to migrate data, because you have, let's say, user acceptance training where you want to have real data. And so now what you've done is you moved some data over, but at the same time, the old system is adding, changing, deleting. And how do you, when you do the next pass of data, How do you add the right stuff and change the right stuff? Unbelievably complex that you guys manage that process.
Yeah, and it's business central, right? So we say it's easy, it's simple, and we can just get it done over a spreadsheet with one person or one little trainee in the back room. And actually, sure, you can bring data into the application, but that's typically where we see the troubles afterwards. After they go live and they start running the system, and then they can't invoice, or the invoice goes into wrong accounts or whatever it may be. That's where the real cost of that trainee in the back room really brings together. So that's why we have these applications. Have had it tried and true for 20 years, now available in Business Central, to ensure that you're doing that in a repetitive way, in a sustainable way, in a great quality way, so that the information that comes into the system isn't going to be creating troubles for you later on down the line. Anybody can bring data into the system. The question is whether it's quality data that it can actually run the system with without any challenges.
Yeah. So with your tool, instead of having a programmer, it's more important to have a business person that understands what the data looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's point and click configuration for them to do it. I think that one of the things that they talked about was the ability of who needs to be doing that. And you said sometimes it takes a team to get it done. And I'll add another level of complexity to that, because when we're talking about just migrating data into Business Central, we're not just talking about vanilla Business Central, right? We see larger and larger customers coming into Business Central. We see larger and larger requirements for industry solutions coming into Business Central. We ourselves have a manufacturing solution for engineer to order type manufacturers, and a food solution for food manufacturers. Those are very large, complex solutions.
Right.
And now you're talking about not just standard vanilla Business Central, but also an ISV solution like ours, or many other ISV solutions in the marketplace. And the system needs to be able to understand not just how to bring data into vanilla Business Central, but also all of these other solutions that are coming into play. Our system actually is able to do that, again, without extra development or manipulation, just through configuration, to be able to bring all your data into the system you're actually running as your production system, which, again, a lot of times will have some sort of ISV solution embedded in there as well. So just adding to that complexity that our solution tries to take away and obfuscate the complexity, obfuscate the need for a developer, so that business person can go and configure all these integrations.
Yeah. You reminded me of something when you mentioned manufacturing, because that's near and dear to my heart. It had a little bit of a technical preview from Eric Von Data, also known as Eric Von Hofwing.
Yeah.
And when he was talking, and we had a couple of guests on the call, and he said something that took my breath away. He was walking people through the drop-down menus and the types of things that he could accomplish migrating data, just showing the interface and how easy it was. And there was this throwaway line where he said, but so what we can do is we can create these for things like an open production order. And he went on, and I stopped breathing because I was waiting for everybody else to understand the complexity of open production orders and everything that's happening there, and what it would require from a knowledge standpoint, to programming standpoint. And I was just waiting for everybody else to catch up and go, oh my God, did you say open production orders? So they weren't manufacturing geeks, so the moment passed, but it was absolutely stunning the way he was able to casually use something that is so incredibly complex as a throwaway line in what you're able to do in your tool set.
Yeah. And I recognize that. And maybe our fault for doing this every day, right? Because that's what we do. And it just becomes a natural part of what we do, which is bringing in transactional data on open orders, open production orders, or whatever it may be. Now, I'm not saying that for every migration, you need to bring in all of your past data, right? And certainly not all your historical data. But however, there will be orders that are going to be open that you need to migrate that in. We even have customers that have some requirements that they need to bring some of the historical data in. And to be honest, we see that problem all the time, where people in that trainee in the back room has no idea what it takes to be able to bring that kind of data in. And for us, that's normally when we get called in. When there is a disaster, somebody needs to go live, they can't handle it. and then they call in last minute. I'd
Yeah.
rather than calling us early on and saving all of the cost and headaches and stress than it took. And we could have helped them from the beginning. To us, yes, it's a natural thing because we do it
Yeah.
all day, every day, because our tools do that for us all day, every day. But I know it is not a simple thing.
I actually think that's a sad scenario that I don't know how you fight this because the competitive environment in selling ERP solutions, nobody wants to sell a data product because the cost of migrating data tries to get depressed so that we don't inflate the proposals. And it's unfortunate that sometimes it's not until the shit hits the fan that this tool is brought in an emergency situation. But
Yeah.
anyways,
Yeah. And we see that. And I think you and I have talked about this before, right? It's a normal way of doing that today, unfortunately. And we do that as well in a way of minimizing the data migration costs. But I'll tell you what we do instead of what you were describing. We see a lot in the marketplace today. We train our users. We give them our tool. We train
mm,
our users, and then they get to leverage that tool to be able to do it right to begin with. Rather than what I've seen a lot of times is people get left to their own on their own to create these large Excel sheets to migrate the entire system without
yeah,
fully understanding it. And then it just gets delayed and it gets issues and ends up with a dirty push. And then you have even more issues in your implementation. We've seen it all. It can be quite troublesome. And sometimes I think people overlook the complexity of bringing data into an ERP system like Business Central. And that's why we have our tools to be able to help our customers and partners make sure that we can get the data in there in a good way, in a repetitive way, and have great data in the system.
yeah. The fact that you mentioned that you train people on the tool set takes me to what I think is the 80% value. I think 20% of the tool set is being able to migrate data, but 80% are the two things that you guys do magnificently, which is monitor data that's being integrated on a daily basis, minute by minute basis, whatever that is, and keep data actually clean as far as integrations and other imports and people that are keying. To me, that's the real power of the platform, keeping data clean or cleaning it in its situation where you imported bad data.
Yeah. So what you're talking about now is moving more towards the integration side of the house, right? One thing is migrating data, but it works the same way. Actually, the platform looks at it similarly. In when we are migrating data, it's validating the business logic, it's checking the data quality, figuring out where there are issues, and then calling out for sometimes a human to come intervene to clean up the piece of the data without shoving it all in. But we do the same in a repetitive way in an integration scenario where we still have the same types of data mapping, data transformation, configuration set up in the system. And then we constantly monitor that over time, as you said, because there is an integration which is happening all the time. And then we continuously verify, is there good data come in, where there are issues, calling out and flagging where there is bad data without putting it into the system so that it can be fixed before it gets shoved in, not
Right.
after it's gotten shoved in and then it's causing, I call it invoicing because if there is a place that if you don't want to create problems, it's invoicing. Everybody wants to get that cash in. A lot of times bad data is actually impacting that part of the business, which means it's impacting your cash flow. It's impacting your ability to make money. And that's what our systems are helping our customers do, monitoring it consistently to make sure that you have consistently good data in the system so that you can invoice or whatever it may be that you're doing in the system accurately.
Yeah. And that includes data that's coming in by people inputting it manually.
Yeah, that's the other side of it, right? Because we talk about data coming in from other systems. But the biggest part of poor data, it is through manual entry. And
Yeah.
then I've had numerous conversations with leaders across the globe. And it brings me back to a recent conversation where they were just saying, we just get to accept that. We just get to accept that because we're human, we're going to enter bad data. And then over time, there will be issues and we're going to have to miss invoices or send it to the wrong person or whatever it may be. Okay, I understand that. And the conversation I had with that particular CEO was, what is the cost of that problem? What's the cost of to your business in having those problems? Yeah, okay, it's maybe 5% of the total business, but that's a huge number depending on the size of the business. What we're doing is making sure that there are logic and rules to validate that data when the user is entering themselves. So to minimize that problem, because
Mhm.
that problem gets caught really late in the cycle. We're all about catching the problem early on in the cycle, because the earlier you catch, the less the cost will be. It's less costly if you catch it early. Typically, a user is entering a bunch of bad data over time, sometimes over years. And then it gets caught 10 years later when that person is not even there. And then they go, what the heck is happening because of something that they've done and the data is there and it's bad, right? So what we
Mhm.
do with our applications, with our quality management side, is to create a bubble, let's call it, around the user so that there is validation at point of entry to
Mhm.
ensure that if there is a mistake, it gets caught right then and there, that it can be fixed before it goes down and trickles into the invoicing systems, for example, and creates a much bigger issue where you're going to have to call your customer and deal, or the customer is escalating to you because you're sending them the wrong invoices. Now you've got to backtrack, create credits and all kinds. You can imagine the cost versus a user just saying, sorry, you can't enter this data because it's not, the quality is incorrect. Completely different scales here.
All right. Thanks so much. I appreciate you.